Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called All Caught Up to Her. The Red Queen was number 2 in our office, a person who rose through treachery, backstabbing, personal connections and incompetence. You know, the typical way a manager moves up. She spent 27 months as a line worker before deposing her supervisor in a coup. In this industry, it usually takes 5 years to get to a point where one really knows what they are doing. She then attached herself to an office boss known as Dan the Dirty, doing his hatchet work on employees and so became indispensable to him. So when Dan the Dirty came to our office, he dragged the Red Queen with him. It was a 3-month honeymoon where the office was being inspected, so she kept her fangs hidden. The day after the inspection report came out, it was open season on the staff. The report did say that it was a very productive office. Well, several things came out within days. This was before we had electronic time cards, so she wrote up a 17-page rambling procedure on how to log your time. AL, staying in town, was one color, going away was another color. SL for yourself was one color, your male spouse was another, female spouse another, kids another, etc, etc. We had more colors than a Crayola 64 crayon box. Also, you had to log time by the minute, in spite of the fact that the system only took 15-minute increments. People were taking 21 minutes of leave and signing out at 5:19. It drove HR insane. In the procedure, if you came back from coffee after 15 minutes or lunch after 45, you were on leave. You could only take lunch between 10 AM and 2 PM, unless you had express written permission in advance from her. We are a 24-hour organization. People on the night shift were getting daily written authorization from her merely to eat. I was away on assignment in a time zone 6 hours different. I had to get written authorization from her to eat for my entire team on a daily basis, because we never ate between 10 and 2 for that time zone. You also had to sign in exactly at 8 and out at 5. Again, we are a 24-hour organization. The Red Queen also developed office and unit spies who would report you if your coffee break went 16 minutes. The office spies were also reviewing your email and your time cards to ferret out any malcontent or color violators. As you can imagine, this did wonders for trust and morale. This is one of about 100 insane things that she did. Here's the malicious compliance part. One type of log entry on your time card was doing the time card. Huge swaths of employees began putting doing the time card on their time card. So your entire day could be doing the time card. Night shift employees began to only work between 8 and 5 and all night productivity stopped. It wasn't long before productivity ground to a halt in the office and panic began to take hold in the ivory tower. Unfortunately, the Red Queen countered by doctoring the records and cooking the books to make it look like we were still being productive so that HQ wouldn't catch on. So she survived for 22 months before the office was on the verge of mutiny. I mean, why actually be productive when you can work 10 times harder to destroy productivity and make it only seem you're being productive? But word did get out and an inspection was scheduled. In a move befitting Game of Thrones, the Red Queen threw Dan the Dirty under the bus and fled to our Connecticut office before inspection and then utterly destroyed that office. I wrote one of many letters to HQ saying that Westeros had nothing on our organization and that a day in the office was like an episode of Game of Thrones, only with less blood and more paper. It all eventually caught up to her. The very head of the organization threw her out on her head, but not before she destroyed one office and nearly destroyed 3 others. Last I heard, she was doing data entry in Colorado somewhere. The next story is called Using the Law. This was a few years ago. I moved to California in 2010 and had lined up a house on a 3-acre property with a nice-sized detached barn. We were on rent to own to allow time to get settled and secure the loan to buy the property. We had a standard California rental agreement. With the handshake agreement, it would not be needed once we purchased the house. The female owner was a realtor, so there was a reasonable expectation that she knew what she was doing. The husband was weird. I cannot explain it past that. Part of the agreement was that we actually bought the horse that was boarded on the property. Also, they had the detached barn full of their old crap, with the agreement that it would be removed by the owners once we purchased. So we moved in. Things are going fairly well. We have several cats at the time, but keep the house cleaned up, and we had one cat prone to accidents, but for the most part we kept everything good. Sometime during the winter we have an issue with the septic system. The owner proceeds to let it slip that the septic was not put in legally and was not correct. They still paid for the repairs. A month or so later, a water line the husband installed to use for watering the horse broke, and again we find out that it was not done correctly. This time I was forced to pay for it. Once I found out about the septic, I started looking for other houses and found one available, and we were able to get it. At this point I give the owner about 2 months notice. We had done some improvements on the property, including a tech shed for all the horse gear. My stepdaughter loved horses and the horse was hers. So almost immediately the owner's attitude changes and I realize we are in for a long 2 months. We are slowly moving into the new house as we have time. During this time, the owner was randomly showing up without 24 hours notice, against the law, attempting to show the house with zero warning. The best one was that she started inspecting the house before we even moved out. At this point we were about 75% moved. The new house was on 12.5 acres and we did not have a pen to put the horses and goats into. One day I get home from work and we have to call a vet out. The owner's daughter, who used to own the horse, decided to give the horse and our 2 goats a year's worth of glucosamine supplements for the horse. We ended up with a several $100 vet bill. So we sped things up and ended up cleaning a few weeks early. Because of this, there were a few odds and ends left behind, including a wooden run-to for the goats. I spent about $500 on cleaning alone to make sure we got our deposit back. I even brought in a professional cleaning service to finish the house up. So we complete the final walkthrough with the owner and she seems happy. She says she will figure everything out and send me a check. About 4 weeks after the original move-out date, I get a large manila envelope in the mail from the owner. Strange, but okay, cool. I open it and she is trying to charge me in the neighborhood of $2,500 on top of the $2,000 deposit she is keeping. Okay lady, let's see what you got. In the envelope about 10 small mailer envelopes and about 300-ish pictures of various things on the property and in the house, along with a 6-page letter outlining what I owe her for. So I start reading. A couple hundred for trash removal, including a list of items removed and a receipt for removal. Several hundred for paint. During the walkthrough I offered to paint the rooms we had painted. One was in an obnoxious cotton candy pink. The owner said no, it was fine. There's also a charge for close to $3,000 for brand new carpeting and high-end padding from Lowe's, as well as the receipt and also an itemized charge for labor. I believe there were a few other items, but I don't have the paperwork in front of me. Now, my first reaction was pure rage. I was seeing red. I wrote the nastiest letter to her 3 different times and took a step back. She had threatened to take me to court. Cue the malicious compliance. I pulled up California rental laws. At the time, there was a great website that explained what an owner could legally charge you for. So I sat down and I believe the entire letter I responded to her with was around 15 pages. The highlights. I was not responsible for the painting or labor associated with it, as I provided the final inspection that did not note any issues with the paint color. I was not responsible for the trash removal. She listed one item that was ours, the plywood run-to in the field. And the items actually listed were all her personal items removed from the detached barn. So it was not my responsibility. I was not responsible for paying for the emergency plumbing repair, mentioned earlier. I provided the bill and the fact it was an emergency, as it was flooding over half of the property and making the entrance to the property impossible. The best one was the last one, the carpets. In her letter she mentioned a horrible smell of cat urine, which she proceeds to explain occurred during the illegal inspections. She also had provided documentation on the cost of materials, including all her purchases. The best part? They were all dated prior to our final walkthrough. No matter the result, she was replacing that carpet. California law is very specific on what the owner can charge for carpets. At the final walkthrough she was okay with the carpets, but then changed her mind a few days later. So I explained to the letter that I was responsible for roughly 1/30 of the cost of replacement, and she graciously showed me this 10-year-old carpet was good for 30 years. So due to the fact it was normal wear and tear, I agreed to cover that portion. It was only a couple hundred. Now in her letter she threatened legal action as well. So I put everything together, including a final breakdown on what was owed to her and what was owed to me, and it was close to $1,500. I also informed her I was ready to take the case to court if she didn't agree with me, as that was the next legal step. About a month later, she had 30 days to respond. I get a check for $1,250 and a short note saying she expected this issue was considered resolved. I have never smiled so much cashing a check. The next story is called Has to Be Done Properly. I work as a firefighter in a large city fire service in the UK. A few years ago, when I was working in another station from my current one, we all had a watch commander, as a lieutenant in the USA, who was a complete prick. We call him Gov, as in the UK fire service, all the managers are called that short for governor, which is a fire service tradition. He'd had a big argument with the whole watch the day before, after we'd caught him lying to us, which ended with him telling us to all go F yourselves and storming out the room. The next day, we had to do a fire inspection visit at a large self-storage facility. This is basically for us to check that the fire safety rules of places are being adhered to, and that we know where all the hydrants are and that we have the right contact details, etc. Normally, Gav would come in with us too, but he was still in a foul mood and stayed on the fire engine while we all went in. The last thing he said was, "Just be quick, as I've got so much office work to do." Well, once inside, we asked the staff there to unlock each storage unit, and we checked almost everyone in there. And there were loads of them in there. Even the storage unit manager looked surprised and said it's never taken this long before. Normally just a quick look overall would do, but not today, we all fought. When we got outside, Gav was furious and asked why it had taken so long. We simply explained that we were doing our job properly and asked him if he wanted us to cut corners with regards to fire safety. He obviously couldn't say yes to this, so just sulked and said nothing. He ended up working late that day to catch up with his office work, unpaid overtime, while we all went down to the pub. We made sure to wave at him as we all left the building. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. And I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.